All right. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Belong Be Becomes monthly Facebook Live. We've got Deb here with us this evening. Good evening, Deb. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Super excited to have you on tonight to speak about your wellbeing hacks for educators. Before I get started, or we get started, and I ask you a bunch of questions, I'll introduce you. A very talented woman that has given me a lot to work with tonight and given all of us a lot to work with. So a little bit about Deb. She is a multi-award-winning art director, designer, and content creator based in Sydney. Her life-changing productivity tools, the Time Block Planner and Expense Tracker, have been used across the world, with her TikToks amassing over 5 million views. Holy moly. Deb also hosts Mamamia's productivity podcast, 8 Minutes to Change Your Work Life, which is awesome, by the way. And Deb's design work has spanned multiple continents and been featured in SBS, The Guardian, ABC, and Frankie Magazine. Whew. Deb's experience and knowledge of small but effective practices we can incorporate into our lives can help to build a stronger understanding of the most productive ways to get things done and get them done efficiently. Deb is a whole lot of woman. Wow, Deb. I am even more privileged after reading. I've always read the bios so many times, but when I read them out loud, it's like a whole nother thing. Thank you so much for your time tonight. Would you like to give us a little bit more context or insight into what you're doing these days?
Yeah. So as you said, I am currently working at Google. I'm an art director, and I'm hosting the Mamamia's productivity podcast. I think their first one, called 8 Minutes to Change Your Work Life. And that came about because I had been creating TikToks and creating products that were just put on the internet for free. And then as a result, that kind of blew up unexpectedly. And Mamamia reached out to me to kind of host their podcast and also talk to a lot of experts and share their hacks. So that has been a really great experience, because I've learned a lot on the way of that. And also just really refined the way I approach my own productivity hacks. And these days I'm just working on the events and experiences team. So I work in marketing at the moment, and just like exploring kind of fun ways to like create products and like just create experiences for the audience.
Awesome. So you got a lot going on, Deb. And I was just thinking, as you said all that, you're offering all these ideas for people to work with, all these little hacks. It must mean that you've done quite a lot of research yourself into productivity. So like, how long has this journey been for you into, being able to create and deliver these hacks?
Yeah, so like my research is kind of like more trial and error. So I feel like the first time I ever read a productivity self-help book was when I was 12 or something. So I like started really young, and it was kind of one of those things where I was just like, oh, okay, like I just want to get better at like studying. So then I'll read this book about like how to do this better. So that's kind of how it started. And reading nonfiction or even listening to an audio book that's nonfiction is so easy. It's much easier than consuming fiction, in my opinion. So I think I've always wanted to maximize the amount of time, because I always feel like I have so many projects, so many ideas. And as a result of that, I'm like, no, everyone has like the same 24 hours, as they say. But I always wanted to see if there was a way to just hack it a bit and like explore more of my own self, and like, just dive into like what it's like to be human, that kind of stuff. That sounds really cheesy, but like very much that. I really like to have an understanding of like patterns and like, how everyone behaves. So I think I love reading those types of books too. Even if I disagree with it, it's kind of like I'm challenging what I read too. So I pick and choose. I feel like I'm very difficult for in terms of having certain things stick with me. So even people say this technique works, it never really works for me. So the hunt kind of started to begin that way. And a lot of the products that I've put out there are like a result of like years and years of me just trialing and like all these different things. So yeah, that's kind of my history of productivity.
Wow, Deb, I feel like we all owe so much to you for putting in the time and effort to like try and test these things. Because, like I feel like I've got so much more respect for someone who's actually done these things themselves, rather than, just standing up there being like, yeah, do this, do that. It's easy. But you've actually done these things yourself, and you've worked out what works for you. And you've also acknowledged that different, like, techniques are individual. So what works for someone else might not work for you or I or whatever. So, oh my gosh, so excited to dive into it. So, I don't know whether anyone's actually, I mean, I've promoted your podcast in my newsletter and on my Facebook and Instagram, but the 8 minutes to change your work life, if you haven't already, go onto Spotify and have a look, follow it, whatever you do. What other platform is it on, Deb?
Oh, it's on, I think it's on Apple. It's on Apple Podcasts as well. I think it's on your favorite podcast app. It's just everywhere. Or you can listen to it on the Mamamia website.
Okay, cool. And it's easy listening. Like, they're like, what, 8 minutes long?
Yeah.
Like,
8 and a bit,
yeah.
or just 8 or something like that.
Yeah, they're super short. And I found, like, I've listened to pretty much all of them, and even if I feel like, oh, I'm not sure if there's anything I can really fully take away from that, it's still sparked an idea somewhere for me, where I can be like, oh, I like what she said there, and I'm gonna like look into that more. So even though they're short, they're super effective, and I find them really interesting. So yeah, so let's get into that. I know that you're not an early childhood educator yourself, but I am, and I have been for a very long time. And some of the common challenges or barriers to wellbeing for a lot of educators is time management. So not having a strong knowledge about how to manage our time, both in the workplace and at home. So I know that's a very broad question. How do we manage time? But I suppose that is my question. Do you have any kind of hacks for prioritizing your time or valuing your time more? Like, what's something you could say to that?
Yeah, so I had this issue for like the last decade basically, and the time block planner that I made basically kind of solves that. Okay, I'll do a plug on my own thing, but I honestly put this up because I found it really useful. So that's my time block planner. So basically,
So this is the one you created.
Yeah, the one I created that went viral accidentally. But essentially, you kind of you plan your day by putting your top 3 priorities. So like that's the kind of things you concentrate on, and then you put like just all the tasks here. And once you do that, you assign like a time to it, and it's all separated in like half-an-hour blocks. And like it actually makes you realize like how much time you have throughout the day, because even if you're like, well, I have like 20 tasks to do, or like 10, let's say, in like 3 priorities, but that 10 seems like so much to do throughout the day. But I think as soon as you kind of assign a time to it, then you're like, well, I've planned the day and I've said, I'm going to give myself an hour to do this one thing. And usually I'd like to give myself a bit more time. So even if something I know will take 10 minutes, I give a whole half-an-hour slot to it. So that way I'm like, I don't have to worry about this task, because I'm going to deal with it when it's 11 o'clock. And like you've kind of already planned it. So that kind of decreases the anxiety. Because for me, with time management, I think the biggest issue when it comes to like completing things is literally the dread that you feel when you're like, oh, I've got so much to do. And then you procrastinate because you feel like you can't get anything done. Whereas with time blocking, you're kind of already assigning time, have confidence in yourself that you're going to give more than enough time for a task. And if it's a new task and you think it's going to take 2 hours, give it 2 hours or even 2.5 hours. It's just that way you can actually decide, oh, okay, I do have 10 tasks, and 10 tasks would take 2 days. So that way you just know more about your own time. And at that point, then you decide, oh, okay, if I had to have this one day and like end it having done 3 things, what are those 3 things? And then once you prioritize those, you're like, oh, actually, like when I was prioritizing everything, like nothing worked, because then they don't become priorities anymore. So yeah, I think it's very much just like, yeah, if I end the day with a couple things that I need to do, what are the most important things? And usually there's a lot of things that can be pushed. And if they're very small, like it's really good to group like similar types of activities together. So if you have like brainless chores to do, like don't spread them between a creative session that you have where you're writing, like just have it all in the first half of the day, do it all together. So it's like putting like similar like tasks together, and then also just time blocking everything.
That's so interesting you say that, because immediately I thought, man, I'm such a procrastinator when I have when I've got to do really important things. I'm like, oh, I'll just cook my dog's breakfast up, my dog's dinner for the week, or I'll just do my washing. Like those things don't need to happen. But yeah, I know what you're saying. So separating the really important things that really should have priority, and then those other things that maybe just can be done in the background, that they also have priority, but they've got their own block of time. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and also for those ones where you can like, you should kind of do not multitask, so just do a single task. But for those ones where it's like you have to do the washing, like if you're going to do something like that that's quite brainless, like have a task that is enjoyable to do at the same time. So like if you really wanted to catch up on a TV show, you're like, well, I get to do that, and I'll do that when I do the washing. So it's kind of like you having a good association with the task that you kind of don't want to do. And I think for me, what I found last year when I was kind of struggling to get stuff done and there was heaps of procrastination, it literally was because I was dreading having to do those tasks, less so my ability to do them. So I had so much time, but I would just not start anything until way late in the day because of the dread, like that feeling of dread. And that in itself is like an emotional journey that is different for everyone. And I think that is something that like you kind of have to explore within yourself, because for me, there was like a reason for that. And I was like, oh, the reason why I'm dreading this is because I feel so overwhelmed by even completing the tasks. Because there's a sense of like, if you complete a task, it might turn into 10 new tasks. And I'm sure you can like relate to that in some way, where you're like, if I start this project, it means I have to do 10 more things under the same project. And that is very overwhelming. So it's very much like getting to the root of like, why do you feel like you're procrastinating? And usually it's a feeling thing, because if it's a habit or if it's like something you enjoy doing, you would just do it without thinking. And you wouldn't, and when you don't think, the time just like you just do it and you don't really have a sense of time. You just complete it. And I've had those many stages where I've spent days on something, but I've created so much in those couple of days when I've really enjoyed it.
Thanks for being really like honest about the dread.
Yeah.
I think that's like, it's so, you've really yeah, you've really done your homework on all this, Deb, because these are all things that you do go through. And like, yeah, like I said, I really like your approach, because you don't make it seem like it's just easy. Like, oh, just do this and this will change your work life. Just get my little planner thing. It's like, no, like identifying all those things. I actually listened to a podcast the other day that called The 5 Whys. So basically, when you're struggling with something or you don't know why you're feeling something, you ask why 5 times. So you actually get to the bottom of what it really is. That is like, you know, preventing you from doing something or making you feel anxious or whatever. So yeah, it's good to also talk about the dread. And I think with that also came to mind was the fact that a lot of educators, because in essence we are nurturers and carers, we actually feel guilty for putting our own needs and well-being first, or even just catering to them in general. So I suppose that might be another question for you, that, you know, when people, I did a workshop last week and someone said to me, I find it really hard to do nothing. I feel guilty for doing nothing.
Oh yeah, me too.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, me too to some degree. But I said, because I was talking about the importance of having sleep and adequate rest, and, you know, rest being different to sleep. Why do we always feel that we need to be doing something, that we need to be stimulated? Why can't we actually honor rest? Because that is the space between our tasks that actually gives us more clarity on things, that gives us a chance to take a breath. Yeah, what is there anything you could say to that?
Yeah, I 100% that that resonates with me so much. So I think I thought I had like the other week was like, when we feel like we're not allowed to do nothing is purely, I think I don't want to blame social media, but what I want to say is when you're logging into social media, whether or not you're really actually like targeted by it or anything, or affected by it really, or you feel like you are, you do feel like people are doing a lot of things. So like for me, I want to watch so many TV shows, but it seems like I'm always falling behind because I'm getting recommended so many by my friends. And I'm like, how do you just watch so many shows? And they're just like, no,
Oh God, I feel like that.
yeah, it's like, I just watch one a day. And then I realized when they're like, oh, I just watch one a day. I'm like, okay, that's like a healthy amount. That's like, I could watch one half an hour show a day. But then when you have like 10 friends that are like, I just watched this amazing show, you have to watch it. It's like they're technically maybe watching one episode a day and living their life as is, but then when they're recommending it to you, you're getting shot at it at like 10 different angles. And that's kind of the same deal with social media, where like someone could see what I'm doing and be like, oh, you're doing something every day because you're always posting about like this thing that you're going to, or like this episode that just came out. You're doing so much. But then they're getting that from so many other people that they follow. And the people they follow, sometimes it's their job purely to be posting something every day. So there's a sense of like, I'm not keeping up with all these people, when in fact the person, just the one person that they might be following might just be doing a regular amount, but you're just getting bombarded with so many people at the same time that you're like, oh, like, why aren't I doing something? I feel so lazy. And I feel that way as well, like with people who draw every day. And then I forget that like they draw every day because that's what they do. Whereas for me, I like have a 9-to-5 job. I, you know, have a podcast to do. I do writing. I want to do all of these things. And I am doing those things, but there's a sense that I'm not doing that thing that the other person is doing just because I'm doing, like, people just don't realize that. And with the guilt, how I've been like working through that myself as well. And I think the guilt is, I think, more acknowledging that that is a reaction that you have automatically and accepting it. Because for me, my automatic response is always like people pleasing, or I'm always like, oh, I can sacrifice a lot of my own like schedule to hang out with someone, even if I don't have the emotional bandwidth for it. Because I'm like, well, when is the next time I'm going to see this person? I'm like, oh, but if I stay home and do nothing, then that's nothing to me. When in fact, you should reframe it and be like, if I rest and if I do nothing, then it will become something where like it will just regenerate me, and like that's the way you should view it. And I had to like accept that about myself, where when I get really stressed out, I tend to just accept more stuff on because of the guilt. So I think it's like, whether or not that is something that I like solve, it's more like accepting that's just your automatic response and being okay with that. And then being like, well, if that's my automatic response, it means that I'll drive myself to the ground if I'm too tired. So what I should do maybe for this 1 week, I'll just not go out, or like I won't try to do something, and that's okay. And if you still feel guilty about it, it's best to just think, well, if I give myself even this like 2 hours to rest, I'm going to have 10 more hours of my energy next week to be able to put forward to more things. So like seeing the benefit, like every little like hour that you give to yourself is an investment in your future self. So that's usually how, that's a good way to combat it. If you're feeling guilty about like, oh, like I'm not putting it towards something, it's like it's like investing money. Like you just put it, you don't know what the trade-off is yet, but it will turn into something someday. And I think I was too worried about investing money into myself, but I was like, no, I can like go to this course, even if it's $500, but like by the end of it, I might have met someone new. I might have learned something that will, you know, open a new door for me. And people just think of the immediate like value like straight away. It's like, oh, if I do this, then it won't benefit me right now because I'm not doing anything. But actually, they're not thinking far ahead enough. So those are a couple tips that I have been trying to tell myself to like get out of the guilt, and it's working. I think I feel much better like this year.
I really love everything you said, Deb. I totally resonate with that. And I think like asking that question, like, yeah, like whose metric are we like living by? You know, and that's from The Subtle Art. Did you ever read that book?
Yeah.
So he talks about success and how we measure success. Like you said, oh, there are people that draw every day, but they don't have a 9-to-5 like me. Or, you know, actually going, well, whose metric are we measuring this by? Like, why do we have the guilt for not doing anything? Like, who's watching? We don't have Big Brother. Well, I hope we don't have Big Brother. But like, sorry, Max just yeah, so it's actually like coming back to yourself and going, oh, like it's okay. These are my needs. This is what's going to fill my cup in this moment, and not doing things because we think we have to, or because social media is telling us to, or yeah, it's a lot to think about. It's really just knowing yourself, isn't it? I'm
Yeah.
going, what's actually going to make me feel better at the end of this, like when I make this decision, and talking about that investment as well. That investment in doing nothing can lead to like an amazing idea. Like I try and give myself 5 minutes a day to just close my eyes and meditate, like still feel like I'm nowhere near where I could be if I did it with more discipline. But things come to me in that moment of doing nothing seemingly. Like the idea for this business came on a bus in Peru when I was like half conscious. I was asleep and I was like, oh my goodness, educated well-being. So yeah, being in transit with things or like having that time to do nothing, it can, like you said, the investment can lead to so many things. And I think that's something very important to focus on. Okay, so we've got quite a few people watching tonight, so I thought if anyone has some questions for Deb around some challenges that they have in regards to upholding their own well-being that I haven't mentioned yet, maybe you could chime in and just ask a question. I can also look at some of my other questions to ask you, Deb. We've had a lot more challenges recently in early childhood with COVID. So I'm definitely not doing justice to everything that we're going through as a profession, as a sector. But definitely those are big ones, the time management thing, the feelings of guilt when we're taking time for ourselves. I suppose also knowing the value of routine, which is something that I have just lost over the years. Is there something you could say about the importance of routine and maybe how we could create a healthy one?
Yeah. Yeah. So with routine, I'm kind of figuring that out myself. I think it really comes down to environment as well. So big part of kind of creating good routine is having like very like dedicated spaces to where you do things for your routine. So like, you know, if you were to go for a walk or like, you know, do writing or journaling, it's like put all the elements there that are like available to you to make it easy for you to get back into your routine or like start it. So like if you wanted to like journal as soon as you wake up, you wouldn't put your book or like your journal in the other room. You'd put it right next to you. So it's like just make it easy for yourself. Or like when I wanted to do yoga, it would always just be like have the clothes right there at the end of your bed when you wake up, and then also have the yoga mat ready to go. So you're like, well, it's already there, like I'll just do it. And also
Yeah.
just having it be automatic. What I like to do before going to bed is also just kind of writing a general like list of times when I'm going to wake up. Whether or not I stick to it, it doesn't actually matter. It's more like you're waking up with intention and being like, okay, I wake up at 7:30, I'll snooze until for like 15 minutes, but then when I get up, I'll do this, this, and this. So you kind of wake up knowing what you're going to do. That really works for me because I feel like if I don't really have an idea of what I should do, I'm just like, okay, now I have to figure it out. And that's like a whole other part of your brain that like needs to be activated.
Yes.
So that's what I like to do, just like literally before bed, like 1 minute, being like, okay, so even as simple as like, okay, I'm gonna brush my teeth at 8 o'clock, or like I'm gonna eat breakfast at like this and this time. Like even simple stuff, because when it's the morning, and I wouldn't say I'm a morning person. I think I'm not a night owl either. I kind of sit in between. I'm not like a 4 a.m. wake up in the morning kind of person. And I don't know if that really works for like millionaires. They just say that. But for me, I just want to wake up at a time and just give myself enough time to finish the 5 things I need to do in the morning. And yeah, like it's keeping things kind of loose, not like so rigid. So you would do 5 things and you'll give yourself an hour to do those 5 things, but you wouldn't be like, it has to be 8:10. If I miss 8:10, then my day's over. Like can't feel guilty about that, or like already set yourself up to fail. And if you miss it, that's okay. Like if I miss something, I'm like, oh, okay, it's fine. I'll just try again tomorrow. And it's more like not being so hard on yourself, because I think it's already really hard for a lot of people, myself included, to get out of bed in the morning sometimes. And yeah, sometimes it's just hard because you're tired.
Oh my goodness, I find that the hardest thing of the day. Honestly, I've never been a morning person. I do not enjoy waking up.
Yeah.
Even if there's something exciting, I'm like, oh God, I just want to stay in bed. So yeah, you're not alone.
Yeah, I snooze for like an hour, and
Hour, wow.
it's really bad. I actually wake up early on purpose. Like I wake up at 6 technically of my alarm because I want to snooze until 7, and that's when I actually start to think about going out of bed. So like I don't actually get out of bed until like 7:30 probably. But I can because I work from home. So, but in cases where I do have to show up somewhere, I will get out of bed quite quickly. But yeah, that's kind of how it happens.
It's funny, isn't it? There's a lot of people out there who can get up so early and go to the gym and do everything before their day starts. And I admire that so much. I just wonder, like, the motivation behind it. Like, obviously, your health and, obviously, it's a good, like, you look forward to these things. I suppose that's what we need to really have a clear idea of, like, what are we waking up for that's going to make us smile, that's going to make us feel energized and ready to start the day.
Yeah. But also I didn't realize that a lot of those people who wake up at like 4 a.m. also go to sleep at 8:30 p.m.
Yeah, that's true.
I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Like you actually do get a full like proper sleep. For me, I go to sleep at like 12. So
Yeah, right.
yeah.
Say you're a night owl then, Deb.
Yeah. I don't think 12 is that late. I think like 2 a.m. is late.
12 was late for me. Mine's like 11. I can't do much past that, but yeah. Yeah, it's all really interesting. We've all, like you were saying, we've all got these individual little quirks that make us who we are, and things resonate, things don't resonate. Some people thrive without routine as well. Like they really enjoy just seeing what every day gives them like by surprise.
Yeah, I think what's like in this whole process of like, yeah, productivity and everything, it really just comes down to you as an individual. Cause like I feel like in a way, I don't want to sound basic, but I am kind of in that way. So I feel like that's also an advantage being a designer. And in a way, I have like product market fit with both the expense tracker and the time block planner. I designed purely because I'm very difficult to like have something that's kind of sticky. But even then, like I feel like I'm a combination of a lot of different things that won't necessarily resonate with the next person who I meet. Some people thrive on certain things. So I think it's more like those books are really great. So you can have an understanding of how people do stuff, but to like adhere to certain rules that someone else has made up, like wake up at 4 a.m. That doesn't work for everyone, and that's okay. And at the end of the day, if you're doing stuff that you like and it works for you, then that's something that you should lean into. It's just good to have the knowledge to be like, okay, like I've never heard that before, I'll try it. But if you try it and it fails, it's not the end of the world, because I've tried so many different things like over the years, and only certain things have stuck. And I don't really force anything either. If it sticks, it sticks. If it finds its way back to me, then it'll find its way back to me.
That's a really good tip as well, that like don't force things that don't work for you. So yeah, like the 4:30 or 5 a.m. club, like all like those people, hats off to you. But if it's not your thing, if it's making you more unhappy to get up early, then maybe do your exercise later in the day or whatever it might be. So it's really down to knowing yourself, isn't it? Asking why times 5.
Yeah, when they say, and I think I heard this about like a couple years ago, where they said the best exercise is the one that you do. And like mine was yoga, and that's how I met you. Like mine was also swimming as well, but I haven't got to that point where I even like running. But there are people who like love running so much, they're like obsessed with it. And at the end of the day, it's like they might like, weights might be something that they would want to do, but if they just don't end up doing it and completely procrastinating, then it's just better to do the thing that you'll just end up doing. So, and I kind of apply that mentality to anything I do now, where it's like, am I just doing it and I'm just showing up? And if it is, then it works. I don't have to force another type of thing that I should be doing just because other people are finding success with it. Because if you're exercising, regardless of what it is, it's still exercise. And especially
and you were drawn to that for a reason.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of that's how I approach things.
Yeah. No, I love that, Deb. Yeah, I can really connect with everything you've said. Katie has said that she's such a routine person. And over the years, I've needed to have strategies for myself to cope when things don't go according to plan, both at work and home. Yeah, it's like it's like a blessing and a curse, isn't it? To have such a strong routine, because your body thrives on routine, right? Well, rhythm, and working with children, this is something that, you know, you learn pretty quickly as an educator, that if things don't go according to routine with kids, things fall apart pretty quickly. And it's not as though things need to happen on the dot at a certain time, but it's also being aware of when the children start to get like become unsettled, or hangry, or, you know, like it's whatever, it's story time, it's rest time, whatever. So to some degree, we all do need a routine or a rhythm in our life so our bodies know what's coming next, because I feel like our physical body prepares for it, right?
Yeah.
I was actually reading a book about meditation recently. It said if you meditate at the same time every day, like your meditation practice gets stronger because your brain is like routined to begin meditation at this time. So you drop into that space naturally and easily, easier with every time that you do it.
Yeah. What I would say about the like routine thing is like what I realized as well, because we've been talking about routines, which is great, but also you're feeling like sort of like stuck and like frazzled when you'll go out of your routine, the way I'd approach it, and this is how I'm approaching it this year, is like building foundations. So instead of feeling like, okay, if I have to do it at a certain time every single day, it's more like I'm just gonna build like a foundation where like this is my response, and like this is what I kind of do generally every day. But if something goes wrong, then I know how to react because I have the knowledge to back it up, or I have like the muscle memory to like kind of fix things. So it's kind of it's more like it's more forgiving, because like I'm kind of building foundations with habits at the moment, and I'm kind of missing a few days, like drinking like 5 glasses of water, 8 glasses of water. I'm missing that sometimes. But at the end of the day, what I'm building is like the automatic response to be like, okay, if I'm feeling like a bit tired, I'll drink water. Like it's not like, oh, if I don't do this, it will be ruined. So for me, it's just like, yeah, last year I didn't have that much routine, and I didn't have foundations either. So like my head was all over the shop because I just didn't have a like strong sense of self, or like, you know, stuff around me that made me feel more grounded. So if you're feeling like a bit stuck, or like worried about things kind of flying everywhere, it's more like, okay, I have all of these habits that are surrounding me right now, and I do that generally on the daily. Like I can rely on those and that knowledge when things kind of go wrong, because things will go wrong inevitably.
Yeah, that's life.
Yeah, so that's what I would say to that.
I think that's really, really useful, because in essence, just the foundation already is should be something that you're really proud of. Like Katie, I think it's awesome you've got such a strong routine, because I find that tricky. I feel like I can be super adaptable without the routine, but then there are days where it totally throws me off and I'm so overwhelmed. And I'm like, oh, if I just did the same things every day, or had that foundation that you're talking about, life might be easier. So it's all a balancing game, isn't it? And not being too hard on yourself when things don't go to plan, because having the foundation already is amazing, is great. Already acknowledge something quite significant to making your life run smoothly. Yeah. Oh, well, I feel like we've covered so much, Deb.
Yes.
I don't know whether there's a lot more to say, unless there's anyone out there that has some more questions for Deb that we haven't covered yet. I mean, I think you've done amazingly, and like really unpacking everything. And, you know, obviously, like I said, you don't work in our profession, so it's kind of hard for you to picture what we do. So I really appreciate you giving all your insights, because I think a lot of what you say is just applicable to the everyday person with our personal lives anyway. I suppose the only last thing really, and I don't know whether there'd be a lot to say about this, because it's pretty intense, but we have a lot of emotional fatigue in our job, as well as physical fatigue, but emotionally, and I'm speaking personally here, that was always the biggest thing for me. So I guess what would be a hack around maybe not managing your emotions, but I don't really know what I'm trying to say, but maybe you could help me out.
Yeah.
Feeling that emotional fatigue and overwhelm, are there any hacks in between? Just dealing with that, or
So a good habit that I've started, and I realized this, like I got more stressed when I didn't do this, was doing morning pages. So like, so every morning I'd wake up and like write one page of just whatever I was thinking, and it doesn't have to be good. Um, and I think like, yeah, so I would do that every single day. And I've been doing that since the beginning of the year. And I felt just way better. So even if there's anything I woke up with, like maybe I had a dream or something like that, and it was an anxiety dream, I would just write about it. And even if it wasn't anything that was very interesting, I just write something, purely because it just allows you to get all that stuff in your head out on the page. And I think if like you're having emotional fatigue, I think a way that your brain works is it ruminates and then it catastrophizes, and you're feeling tired, you're like, oh no, like does that mean I'm going to be like this forever? Am I going to do this? Like your brain automatically worries, especially if you have anxiety. So I would say like, yeah, get everything out on the page, out of your brain. Another thing is to figure out, there's a really great book that I recommend called the Crossroads Between Should and Must. And that kind of like allows you to question things about what you have, like what you should do and what you must do. So should is like what people are telling you to do, what you feel like society has told you to do, versus what you must do, like your passion, like you can't help but do something. And I think it's really hard when you have a passion. And I think a lot of people who do go into education are really passionate about teaching and like connecting with people. And being a creative myself, it's like I went in feeling like I want to share like, you know, all the creative ideas I have and stuff like that. And it's hard when you have that passion and you turn it into a job, because what your must turns into a should. Like I should wake up every day to do this thing, and I must, like, you know, I must do this, but I should also do this. And I think it's really like being able to distinguish between the two, and not, and kind of separating them if you can. So like kind of feeling like I want to do this, and like I really want to hold on to the must and the passion and everything, but like acknowledging that there are going to be shoulds throughout your life, but minimizing your emotional attachment to the shoulds. So like if like an example of a should is like, I should impress this type of person, but actually that doesn't really do anything for your own well-being, because you're living for someone else or you're doing something for someone else. And should is always about living for someone else. So I think eliminating that, that's a very deep version of like trying to get rid of like emotional fatigue. But the hack really is just like giving yourself time to yourself. And I think like even just like an hour where you're like, I'm allowed to do anything I want. I can do whatever I want. I don't have to do anything that anyone says. That it's like people feel, and I feel like fatigued when I don't feel like I have any power over my own decisions and my life. Like that makes me more tired than actually being like physically tired from a long day. And it kind of goes hand in hand if you have a really long day where, you know, you've done things that you don't like doing, but then also on top of that, you've spent like 10 hours working too. So I think the exhaustion and the dread really comes from just not living the life that you want to live. And there are things that we don't want to do in life, but there are things that we can accept that are part of life, and then just reframe it in a way where you're like, the purpose of doing this thing that I don't really love doing is that it provides me this thing, which I am passionate about. So it's like kind of reframing things and not feeling so overwhelmed by living for someone else. I think a lot of people are living for other people now, because there's this expectation that like you have to do things to impress other people. And it's, I don't want to blame social media again, but also that's just how it is. It's harder to live. But yeah, I think we're living for other people a lot still. Even though we have all these resources and stuff, we're still living, not for ourselves. So try to regain that power back in some way.
Yes. Oh, Deb, you just articulated everything perfectly.
Thank
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm sure you've actually really made a difference to a lot of people. Like, just with what you said, you've definitely like made me think about some things. So yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. This has been such a treat. So nice to reconnect with you, and I feel like we really never got to know this side of each other, and yeah, I value so much what you're bringing to people and what you gave all of us tonight. So thank you so much for your time, Deb. Yeah, it's been awesome. Before we go, do you want to, I don't know whether you can do this on your end or I could do it afterwards, just put that link to your podcast or anything else that that people can follow you on for more of your hacks and your tips?
Yes, I will drop it in later.
Yeah, cool. That sounds good, because yeah, I think that people following you would really yeah, get a lot more out of what you have to offer. So, oh, we've got a couple of comments here. So Moira said it was a great webinar. Alice said this is lovely. Lots of gems from this chat. Thanks, ladies.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, good stuff. Good stuff. That's what it's all about, is offering all these things to people. Everyone deserves these things, right? We shouldn't keep secrets when we unlock some really good tips and techniques in terms of our mental health and overall well-being. So yeah, your knowledge is so much appreciated, Dev, and yeah, let's chat again soon.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Alana.
Thanks so much, Dev. See ya. Thanks for watching, everyone.